watching the defending Stanley Cup champions just utterly emasculate the Maple Leafs, the entire city of Toronto, almost all of the province of Ontario, except for that small portion that pulls for the Senators. And it occurred to me that the Florida franchise is sitting in a pretty good spot for years to come. And it got me thinking about something else. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. The final of that game, by the way, was 6-1, and it was nowhere near that close. This was a clinic conducted in real time, this Game 5 that gave the Panthers a 3-2 lead in the series, taking it back to Sunrise. This was Paul Maurice hockey over all 285 of ice, and by the way, it was also exactly what the Maple Leafs and their regulars tend to do this time of year, over all 200 by 85 of ice. So where I took this was, who's on the way up? Who's on the way down in the Eastern Conference? Who are the teams that when, or I should say if, the Penguins return to being competitive or contending within the next couple of years, and I only say that not to strike some sort of optimistic tone, but that's the most plausible time frame to get the most out of the rest of Sidney Crosby's brilliant career. So I first started thinking about the teams that are perceived, and I believe fairly so, to be really kind of entrenched, like they're not going to go away anytime soon. They are who they are. And the ones that I'd put in that category are the Lightning, because they still have all their main guys, and then they got a little bit younger by having Jake Gensel in there instead of Steven Stamkos. The Hurricanes, who have all these similarly skilled guys, all of these Sebastian Ahos and Jacob Slavins, if you will. Now, I'd put the Devils in there, but I'd kind of lean them more toward being on the way up because their main people, notably Jack Hughes, are younger and can still get better, and in Hughes' case, of course, healthier. And then put the Panthers on there, and that's the end of my list in that category. Next, I go with the ones that I feel like are only getting better. And that's the Capitals. Even though they were the best team in the conference, they are still very much on the way up. Now, the question for them at this stage is kind of similar to the one that's going to be posed to the Penguins, which is, how are you going to do this without Alexander Ovechkin? Because respectful of everything else that occurred in D.C. this year, Ovi still scored a ton of goals. I would put the Senators into this category, but I wouldn't get overly excited about the Senators. They have their Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle and Drake Batherson, at least when he's facing the Penguins, but I see a lot of work ahead for Ottawa management on the blue line. Still, moving up, getting better. Can say the same thing about the Canadiens, especially now that they've added Ivan Demidov to what had already been a fast and exciting younger core. Truth be told, they could actually be pretty exciting before long. Still, caution. There's not much on the back end there, and I don't trust Sam Montembeault in goal. Blue Jackets, really similar spot. There's a reason they only missed the playoffs by 2 points and didn't seem to surprise much of anybody, at least not past, the first couple months of this past season. Zach Werenski finally lived up to where he should have been all along. Adam Fantilli's there. They got young guys. They've got players. They're not complete, but they're on the way up. The Red Wings, I have no idea. I just feel like when I see them, it's some mishmash of Dylan Larkin and older dudes and then some young guys who've underachieved and they look like they're promising for a week. Then they look like the Red Wings for another week. I'm not buying on them. And with that, I will conveniently encapsulate pretty much everybody else in the conference who'd fit into the either not really going anywhere or possibly even regressing category. So where does that leave the Penguins? First off, I don't see them as necessarily fitting into any of these categories until we see something significant from young players. I can't say here that the Penguins are on the rise, that they're up and coming. Not as I'm speaking to you. I also couldn't, with a clear conscience, describe them as going backward. So I think they're just kind of like right where they are, and they still have a lot of work to do, especially on the back end. But as this builds up, and if Kyle Dubas is successful in getting it there sooner rather than later, listen, it was Dubas himself who a month ago said about the Capitals that what's been most impressive about their rise is that it's been through the draft and that they have more coming. In his words, they're going to be a problem for us for a long time. And I could see that being the case for a few of these teams. Having a couple of really, really good young talents doesn't always mean you're about to hit some next level. Ask the Rangers about that. When everybody there was instantly coronating their team because of Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, and Adam Fox, who actually did perform at a high level, and then Igor Shesterkin, and this is all like, oh, this is it, this is the next whatever. But they don't know how to do these things in New York. Okay, they just don't. They're going to hit the panic button at the first sign of trouble. They're going to go and chase older guys with massive contracts, or they're going to go and spend $1 gazillion on a head coach who does not have on his record right now a willingness to work with young guys, presuming that is, in fact, part or even all of the reason that he apparently took no issue with being fired here. So who are my 5 teams, you might be curious, that I have just kind of floating to the bottom? Well, 3 of them are already there. That's the Flyers, the Bruins, and of course the Sabres. The Islanders, in addition to not being very good, are now going through some stark changes, headlined by no longer having Uncle Lou as your GM for the first time in forever. And I am told that their minor league system is just bankrupt, that they've got nothing coming. So that's 4. And who's my 5th? Well, let's just wait another couple of days and see what happens up in Toronto, and the extremes to which the public will want to be rid of their resident 60-goal guy who can't score to save his life in a big game, or their resident TV commercial star who made that brilliant giveaway to get the Panthers going. Really, basically everybody who's been part of that whole process other than William Nylander. But if you do that, you lose these guys up there. You can kiss these regular seasons goodbye in addition to the playoffs. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Today's J1Q comes from Eileen, who asks, DK, when there are discussions regarding the goaltenders in the Penguin system, it seems to me that Philip Larson is not mentioned often. Why is that? He's not that old, and he was playing at a very high level before he got injured. To clarify a couple of things, first, Eileen, Larson he's 26 now. He's going to turn 27 in August. I guess, youth is in the eye of the hockey beholder, but that's not super young either. The season that he had in Wilkes-Barre in the AHL started off great. He had multiple shutouts, was leading the league at one point in that category. Where he ended up is, of course, the only thing that would matter, at least, from the perspective of his total. He appeared in 26 games for the AHL Penguins. He went 12-9-3. He had a 2.84 goals against average, which is very nice. He had a .910 save percentage, which is also okay. But I think a couple of things happened to Larson One is that he did miss some time to injury, about a month in all from mid-January to mid-February. Another is that Yoel Blomqvist and Sergei Murashov, in particular, the latter, came with a little bit more of a wow factor to them. If you go back, for example, to the Penguins training camp in the fall of 2024, the goaltender that everybody was kind of buzzing about there was Murashov. Why? Because he could do some insane things. Now, being able to do some insane things is nice for a goaltender. It's a great thing to rely on, but consistency is infinitely more valuable. Still, we all watch the highlights, don't we? The other thing is that there were some telling signs. I'm often advising people who listen to my work or read it or take it in any form. Don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And when the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton team made it to the playoffs, had that best of 3 with Lehigh Valley, Game 1 went to Blomqvist. He got hurt. Game 2 went to Murashov. And if the Penguins had seen something there, then I'm guessing they would have given him one or both of those, but they didn't. And as it was, the only game that he ended up playing in the month of April, he allowed 7 goals on 36 shots in a loss at Cleveland. So that's it. That's not me dumping on the guy or whatever. You brought it up. There's actually, I feel like there's more of a positive vibe around another goaltender that neither of us mentioned, and that's Taylor Gauthier, who, by the way, was the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton backup in those playoff games. So we'll see. Kyle Dubas has I think, a pretty tough call on his hands when it comes to the goaltending for the coming season. He did, and I thought this was newsworthy and was surprised there didn't seem to be more of a reaction to it at his end-of-season press conference, lay out a scenario in which all of the goaltenders, including Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, will come into NHL camp and compete for NHL jobs. Now, sometimes you can just say that, but once you make it public, there's at least a little additional pressure on you from the management perspective to follow through if, in fact, you have somebody show up and just go totally lights out on the process. Neither Blomqvist nor Murashov are children. They should be able to compete, and contracts should not play a factor. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.